The air was cool and crisp as autumn settled over the Appalachian hills, painting the landscape in hues of gold and crimson. Eliza Dawson had returned home from the Cherokee village, her heart filled with the satisfaction of having helped those in need. But a restlessness stirred within her, a feeling that there was still something, someone, waiting for her out there in the vast wilderness. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the first stars began to appear, a rider approached the Dawson cabin. The figure was cloaked, and as he drew nearer, Eliza felt a strange flutter in her chest. When the man dismounted and removed his hood, Eliza recognized him immediately. It was Alexander Blackwood, a man she had met months before during her adventure in Seabrook. Alexander had an air of mystery about him that had intrigued Eliza from the moment they first met. His eyes, a deep green, seemed to hold secrets of their own, and his voice, rich and smooth, carried with it the weight of many untold stories. There was a quiet strength in him, and yet, something vulnerable beneath the surface that only added to his allure. "Eliza," Alexander greeted her, a small, almost hesitant smile playing on his lips. "It's been too long." Eliza nodded, trying to keep her composure despite the sudden warmth that spread through her. "What brings you here, Alexander?" "I came to warn you," he said, his tone growing serious. "There's trouble brewing in Seabrook again. I thought you should know." Eliza's brow furrowed in concern. "What kind of trouble?" "Rumors of a group of men who believe the cursed medallion you neutralized still holds power. They're determined to find it, and they won't hesitate to use force to get what they want." Eliza felt a chill run down her spine, but it wasn't the threat that unsettled her, it was the way Alexander was looking at her, as if he was afraid of something more than just the danger they faced. There was an intensity in his gaze that made her heart beat faster, a tension that neither of them seemed willing to acknowledge just yet. "We need to stop them," Eliza said, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. "But why come all the way here to tell me? Surely there are others in Seabrook who could help." Alexander's eyes softened, and for a moment, he seemed almost vulnerable. "Because I trust you, Eliza. And, because I wanted to see you again." The confession hung in the air between them, unspoken but undeniable. Eliza felt her pulse quicken, and she knew then that the connection she had felt with Alexander in Seabrook had not been one-sided. There was something between them, something that went beyond the adventures they had shared. They rode out the next morning, heading towards Seabrook under a sky that threatened rain. The journey was quiet at first, the only sounds being the crunch of leaves beneath their horses' hooves and the occasional call of a distant bird. But as they traveled, the tension between them began to ease, and their conversation flowed more naturally. Alexander shared stories of his travels, of the places he had seen and the people he had met. Eliza listened intently, fascinated by his experiences and the way he seemed to view the world with both wonder and caution. In return, she told him about her own adventures, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned from the land and its people. As they rode, Eliza found herself drawn to Alexander in a way she hadn't expected. There was something comforting in his presence, a sense of safety and understanding that she rarely felt with others. And yet, there was also a thrill, a quiet excitement that simmered just beneath the surface, making her wonder what might happen if she allowed herself to explore the feelings she was starting to have for him. By the time they reached Seabrook, the sky had darkened, and the first drops of rain began to fall. The town was eerily quiet, the tension in the air palpable. Alexander led Eliza to the mayor's house, where they were briefed on the situation. The men searching for the medallion were ruthless, and it was clear they would stop at nothing to find it. Eliza quickly devised a plan, one that would draw the men away from the town and into the forest, where she could use the terrain to her advantage. Alexander agreed, though she could see the worry in his eyes. "Be careful," he said, his voice low as they prepared to set the plan in motion. "I don't want to lose you." Eliza's heart skipped a beat at his words, but she forced herself to stay focused. "I'll be fine, Alexander. We've faced worse than this." As they led the men into the forest, the tension between Eliza and Alexander seemed to grow with every step. There was a sense of urgency in their movements, a shared understanding that this was more than just another adventure. It was a test of their wits, their courage, and perhaps, their growing feelings for each other. The confrontation was intense, filled with suspense and danger. Eliza's cleverness and Alexander's strength proved to be a formidable combination, and together they outwitted the men, leading them into a trap that left them disoriented and defeated. When it was over, and the last of the men had been driven away, Eliza and Alexander found themselves standing alone in the forest, the rain now a steady drizzle around them. The tension that had been building between them all day finally came to a head. "Eliza," Alexander began, his voice filled with a mix of relief and something else, something deeper. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Eliza replied, her voice soft as she looked up at him. The rain had plastered his dark hair to his forehead, and there was a vulnerability in his eyes that she hadn't seen before. "We're a good team, you and I." He stepped closer, and for a moment, they simply stood there, the rain falling softly around them, the forest silent and watchful. Then, without a word, Alexander reached out and took Eliza's hand, his touch warm despite the chill in the air. "Eliza," he said quietly, his voice barely more than a whisper, "I've traveled far and seen much, but nothing compares to what I've found here with you." The words sent a shiver down Eliza's spine, and she knew, in that moment, that this was more than just a passing infatuation. It was something real, something that could grow into something truly special, if she was brave enough to let it. With a small, tentative smile, Eliza squeezed his hand. "And I'm glad you found your way back to me." As they stood there, hand in hand, the rain washing away the last remnants of the danger they had faced, Eliza felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of hope and possibility that she hadn't felt in a long time. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she wouldn't face them alone. And as they began the journey back to Seabrook, Eliza couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of a new adventure, one that would test not only her courage and cleverness but also her heart. Eliza's quick thinking and Alexander's unwavering strength made them an unstoppable team. But their story is just beginning. If you're as intrigued by their growing bond as we are, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Join us in the next chapter of The Clever Daughter of the Pioneer, to see how their romance and adventures continue to shape the frontier.